Notre Dame is about to make its first trip to Kyle Field in over 20 years, and the experience could be unlike anything this team has seen before. So, what are the Irish in for against the Aggies on Saturday night? A Texas A&M insider breaks it all down next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into Locked On Irish. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today on Thursday, August 29th, and thanks for making this your first listen of the day. This show is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts, plus you can watch the full thing on YouTube as well. If you are watching along, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, or if you're listening to podcasts and you like what you hear, please rate the show 5 stars, leave a review, and subscribe. This episode is presented by 5 Hour Energy with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Just go to 5hourenergy.com today. Okay, today on the show, we got Texas A&M beat writer Carter Karels on to break down the game from the Aggies perspective. If that name sounds familiar to you, it might be because he used to cover the Irish a few years ago as a writer for the South Bend Tribune, and now he's back in Texas covering his alma mater for Gig'em 24/7. And given his ties to both programs, I felt like he was the perfect guest to come on and talk more about this game as we get closer and closer to kickoff. Unfortunately, Carter had to run a bit early, so it's going to be a shorter episode than normal today, but there's still a ton of great content on the feed this week to get you ready for Saturday and really the rest of the season. So on Monday, I broke down every opponent on the Notre Dame schedule and shared my thoughts about how I think the season is going to play out. Then I gave my official record prediction at the end. On Tuesday, Luke Smith came on for our annual preseason award show. We've been doing this for 5 years now, and we handed out some classic awards, including the Club Fever Award for who we think will be the top performing freshman this season, the Kyron Williams Award for who could have the best breakout season. Plus, we handed out some new awards as well. It's always a ton of fun. If you are a current Notre Dame student or if you're an alum, I think you might enjoy some of the references in that episode, but we made sure it's a good time for every listener, so I really encourage you to check that one out if you have not already. Yesterday, I did my own deep dive into the A&M game. I tried to cover it from every possible angle by looking at the biggest storylines, some interesting matchups, plus the players to watch on the Aggies. I also shared my keys to the game for the Irish and gave out an official prediction at the end. Then tomorrow, I'm going to be right back here to react to the release of Notre Dame's Hard Knock style documentary that actually airs today on Peacock. The official name for the show is Here Come the Irish, and it's going to provide a behind-the-scenes look into the team as they get ready for the upcoming season, and I am so excited about it. I loved watching the A Season With series back in 2015 on Showtime. It was especially cool because I was a student at that time. I remember seeing the camera crew around campus sometimes, and that was just a really fun season to be a part of, and to be able to watch it up close like that was really cool. So I have high hopes for this Peacock docuseries. I'm also going to answer some mailbag questions in tomorrow's episode, so get those in. If you got them, you can submit yours in the YouTube comments below. You can send them in on social media. The Twitter account is @LockedOnIrish. Instagram is @LockedOnIrishPod. So there is a ton of great stuff available to you now and coming your way tomorrow, and I hope you enjoy it all. But for today, let's bring in Carter. All right, I'm joined now by Carter Karels from Gig'em 24/7. And before we dive into the matchup between Texas A&M and Notre Dame, I want to ask you what it's like being maybe the most coveted man in all of sports media right now, because you are everywhere. You have become the source about this game, given your connections to both schools, and I'm just grateful I made the cut.
Yeah, man. Well, I can't believe my voice is still working because, yeah, it's been fun. I used to cover Notre Dame 2018 to 2021, and I've been at A&M the last year and a half. So it's been fun talking about it. You know, a lot of these Notre Dame players I covered as recruits. I can remember going to Jack Kaiser's snowy playoff game in the middle of nowhere in Indiana and getting to meet him and his family. And so, you know, a lot of fun people that I'm going to be able to see this weekend and media members and everything. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
How would you describe the level of excitement and anticipation from the A&M side about this game? Because it's the first game under a new head coach. It's a ranked matchup in prime time, so obviously it's going to be a big deal. But the Aggies also have home games against LSU, Texas, and Missouri on the schedule, whereas on the Notre Dame side, this is the biggest game of the year, and it feels like so much is on the line.
Yeah, I think this game, similarly for A&M, you win this game, and it's like, oh my gosh, that means that they're really good. Like if Notre Dame wins this game, they're probably going undefeated because this might be the hardest game on their schedule. A&M, is Notre Dame the hardest team? I don't know, but you only have to go 10-2 in the SEC to probably make the 12-team playoff. So you win this game, then, hey, are there 3 other games on the schedule that you're going to lose? I'm not sure. So I think for A&M, the excitement is as high as it's been, all offseason, just because I think at the beginning of the offseason, there was, kind of some battered, miserable, feelings among the fan base coming off of last year and firing the head coach and, just wondering where the direction of the program was headed. And, they hire Mike Elko and it made sense, but it wasn't like this super flashy hire. And so, took some A&M fans a while to kind of rally behind him. But with what he did in the offseason, I think it's, kind of rallied the fan base behind him because, retaining a lot of the top talent from last year, making some great hires, and also adding a lot of nice players in the transfer portal. It's created a situation where it's not quite going to be a rebuild like previously thought. So the excitement's high, and you win this game, and you have your whole season in front of you.
What are you expecting in regards to the atmosphere at Kyle Field on Saturday night? Because Notre Dame has not played a big SEC road game since 2019 at Georgia. I was there. It was incredible. So anything close to that is going to be electric, but also it makes things very difficult if you're on the visitor sideline.
I was actually at that game too. It'd probably be very similar to that environment. I think The Athletic ran a list of their top 10 venues. I think Georgia was 9th, A&M was 10th. A&M is unique because not only do you have 105,000 fans, but you got 100-degree weather when it's August 31st, and it's going to be humid as all get out this weekend. Now, fortunately for Notre Dame, it looks like it's super hot up there this week, so they're kind of going to be able to train through those conditions. But it's going to be, especially in a game that I anticipate to be low scoring and, a defensive battle and third downs. Every third down is going to be huge. Defensive kind of games, even though some might say they're more boring, they seem to bring more out of the crowd because every play matters, every possession, every third down matters, because this game could be the difference between a long field goal or a nice punt return. Like this is really that kind of game where one big play or two could really matter. So I think the crowd's going to be very into it, and it'll be loudest that Notre Dame hears all season.
One of the biggest storylines going into this game is Riley Leonard facing his old coach, Mike Elko. They both have great respect for one another, and I thought Mike Elko's quote about going up against his former player was really interesting. He said that it's going to be kind of an uncomfortable situation. He's not necessarily looking forward to it. And he also said that Riley has an advantage because he understands the defense. Now, I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship involved here. But on the flip side, Elko obviously knows all of Leonard's strengths and weaknesses better than most. So who do you think has the bigger advantage in that respect?
I tend to lean with Elko because, while Riley Leonard went against Elko's defense for a couple of years, in practice, you're really going against the scout team that's emulating the defense of the upcoming opponent. You're going against Louisville's defense in practice. You're going against Florida State's defense in practice when you're at Duke and you're preparing for your upcoming opponent. And so, whereas I think Elko, he was around Riley Leonard, he knows his strengths and weaknesses, and also got to play Notre Dame last year, I think could be an additional benefit for him because, he understands how good Mitchell Evans is. He understands how good Howard Cross is. And where their strengths and weaknesses might be, not just Riley Leonard. Whereas, yes, Riley Leonard is facing a scheme that he's familiar with, but he's never gone up against Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart and those kind of guys. So certainly certainly some things he's going to have to get familiar with. Also, A&M's got a ton of transfers on defense. They've got 7 in the secondary alone. And then up front, you got Nick Scorton and Cassius Howell. At linebacker, Scooby Williams, Solomon DeShields. So, you're not only facing, a defense you've never played before, you're facing a defense with players from, 12 different rosters. So I think the same things at play with A&M in a sense, where when they're having to prepare for Notre Dame, they're having to watch Duke film of Riley Leonard. They're having to watch LSU and Cincinnati film of Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, trying to get accustomed of him. They've got a receiver from Florida International, Marshall. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. So as much as they know each other, there's still a lot that they had to learn in preparing for this matchup.
You brought up the transfers. I want to ask about that specifically because the whole college football world watched Florida State lose to Georgia Tech this weekend. A lot of people attributed that to the fact that Florida State had to basically reload in the transfer portal. They did not look like a cohesive unit on either side of the ball. I think that's playing the results a little bit, but I do think that when you get a bunch of guys in the portal, it does have an effect, especially early on in the season. Now, Texas A&M basically had to rebuild their linebackers and their secondary via the transfer portal. So what steps have Mike Elko and Jay Bateman taken to improve that transition and make sure that those guys gel as quickly as possible? Because this is their first game together, and it's a pretty big one.
Yeah, I think for the secondary, you look at this group last year, and there was really no way to go but up for them. I mean, I know the numbers might average out a certain way, but when they played the best passing offenses, they got torched time and again. They had players out of position all over the place. Josh DeBerry was a nickel. He was playing corner. Bryce Anderson's a safety. He was playing nickel. It was just a bad fit in every way. And so, I think they only have to go up. They have better depth with the guys they added. Last year, they lost, a couple guys mid-season, and they're having to throw guys out there that just had no business of being out there. As far as preparing the unit, I think if you ask them today who's going to start against Notre Dame, they may not know the answer to it. I think that they come into this game, they feel obviously very good about Bryce Anderson at safety and what he can do there, moving there. But beyond him, they've got competition at all the other spots. The other safety, you got Dalton Brooks and Trey Jones, the Central Michigan transfer, competing. And the cornerback spots, you got Will Lee, the starter from Kansas State, Des Ricks, former 5-star recruit from Alabama. A bunch of names there. But I think what they've tried to do is just kind of mix and match as much as they can in preseason camp to really get a solid evaluation of these guys. I think they added a good blend of, guys that they may not be great, but they're good depth and have experience, and they're not, true freshmen that you're throwing out there. Guys who have potential, like Des Ricks, certainly looks the part as a former 5-star recruit. And then guys that, could be a starter, like Will Lee, coming from Kansas State. Tyreek Chappelle also came back and is making the move to nickel. So a lot of guys that have experience, are juniors and seniors, not freshmen and sophomores, and then a good blend of other guys coming up the ranks like Des Ricks.
Carter will be right back with us in a moment to provide his thoughts on what the floor and ceiling is for Aggie quarterback Connor Wigman. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about 5-Hour Energy. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5-Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, You always have a large list of projects to do at home or things to do at work. And when you get supplies for your project or you're ready to knock out that to-do list at work, do not forget the most essential supply, which is a 5-hour energy shot. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-hour energy website is flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There really is a flavor for everyone, and you can try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it is delivered right to your door. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can get some 5-hour energy product today. And you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Dane Brugler, the NFL draft expert at The Athletic, has quarterback Conner Weigman ranked as the 24th player overall on his big board going into the season. And I understand he was a former 5-star, but he's also coming off a major injury and has not played a ton of college football. Then again, he has flashed some serious talent. So what do you think is his ceiling and what's his floor?
Yeah, it's interesting because this happens in the draft every year where you have these late risers, you're trying to project guys. I remember when Mitchell Trubisky went as high as he did. No one who knew who that guy was the year before. He had never really done anything, and we found out how that went. But there's guys that will rise, and so you're trying to project. And with Weigman, it hasn't been an issue of talent. A lot of it's been just the availability. This true freshman season in 2022, I feel like he should have been the starter day one. I'm sure he probably felt that way too. He didn't begin the season that way. Jimbo really loved him some Haynes King, and certainly Haynes King is looking a lot better now at Georgia Tech, but it didn't really, age well for him that season. And then when he put in Conner Weigman mid-season, he lit up Ole Miss, he lit up LSU, beat the number 5 team in the country in the regular season finale, and did so with a group of players that went 5-7. And he did that as a true freshman. And then last year, I felt like he really did a great job the first couple games before getting hurt and kind of struggled against Auburn too. But in the 8 starts we've seen of him, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The stats have been good. What he does really well is extending plays and avoiding sacks and taking care of the football. He's shown to be accurate as well. I think the challenge for him this year will be he doesn't necessarily have that stacked receiver cast. He doesn't have a receiver who's had 700 receiving yards for a Power 5 school in a season. It's one thing to not have a 1,000-yard receiver, but when you have a guy that's had 700 at a Power 4 school, that could be a challenge. So can he throw guys open? Can his accuracy and his anticipation be sharp enough to where, a guy who just has a sliver of space he can get it to through a tight window? That's what you'd like to see from him this year, as well as, playing the whole season.
Last question I have for you, because I know you got to run. There's been so much talk about Notre Dame's young and inexperienced offensive line going up against Texas A&M's very good defensive line, and also Notre Dame's good defensive line going up against Texas A&M's offensive line. I understand that last year that was a big weakness on the Aggies, their offensive line. How much do you think that they've improved going into the season?
Yeah, I think they feel really good about the left side, but not very good about the right side and the center position. The left side, I think you've got 2 draft picks there. Trey Zunes, a 3-year starter at left tackle. I think he'll be a middle-round pick in this upcoming draft. We'll see, but he really started to come into his own last year. Chase Basanis, he made the freaks list for Bruce Feldman on The Athletic for the second year in a row. He's somebody that, athletically is very impressive. He just played at the wrong position last year. He was at right tackle out of necessity. Now he's moved to left guard. I think he's going to have a strong season there. It's the other guys that you're concerned about. They brought in Armaj Reed-Adams from Kansas. He makes sense as right guard, and I think he could be pretty good there. but they've moved him to right tackle some in preseason camp. They've kind of switched between him and Ruben Fothery, and I think the fact that they're doing that late in camp tells you that hey, maybe they don't know who's the best 5 to go with over there. So center's another position. It was a weak point for this team the last couple of years. Bryce Foster kind of began to fade after he tore his ACL in 2022. He left for Kansas, so that left open an opening for Texas A&M at the center spot. They've had Mark Naboo there, who kind of made sense as the guy to fill in that void. But then they brought in a transfer from Utah, Coley Fayu, and they've kind of been battling there. So, again, I think left side, you're good. But center, right side, that's where it begins to get a little tricky.
Carter, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. You've got a very busy schedule. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll have to do this again before next year's season opener.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you right now. So now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. I honestly cannot recommend this enough. I've had YouTube TV for years, and it's great, affordable, and the Sunday Ticket option makes it even better. What's better than watching your favorite team every Sunday? The ability to also tune in to every other game to check in on your fantasy team. So you can watch your fantasy team get that win and your favorite team. Football season is so close. I am so excited, and FanDuel allows you to get in on the action like never before. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode is also sponsored by Factor. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this May and throughout the summer with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. And you can keep kitchen time to a minimum because Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless supply for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow morning with my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of the Here Come the Irish docuseries. Plus, I'm going to answer some mailbag questions, so get yours in and make sure you tune in for tomorrow's episode. Remember, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On College Football podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. He does a great job. I was on a show this week, really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. I'll see you guys tomorrow.